What's up, everybody? It's 12:03 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Max. With me is Daim over here. With me is Colborn over here, like hands of a clock. And this is your MOCA Weekly Town Hall that we do every week. We're happy to be here. Daim, Colborn, maybe we can start here. What's up?
What's up, Daim?
Well,
Yeah, you go first.
World stuff wise, I guess probably not too much good. Although getting your government back might be, decent for you guys.
Eh.
We don't know if we want it back.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
one.
there could be pros and cons.
What I think we should just really quickly go into what we were talking about just before we got on the call, which is that we got a Renee.
Nice.
Renee, what's up?
Hey.
Can we talk very briefly about what the longest words in English and Hungarian are?
Well, mine's a made-up word. Apparently, it's an invented word, but it's pneumona ultramicroscopic silicon volcanocarniosis.
Even though the sound is really quite atrocious.
Now you say it, Max.
So I think I'm cutting out.
Right. You just be like problems with the audio.
It looks like he's saying it right.
You ever play the game where it's like you take the box and you put the box in your head?
No, that's pretty fun though.
Yeah, thanks. We got an Untitled. The whole team's here. Let's make us a little bigger, shall we? Boom.
Nice.
Wow.
And the gaps.
Sweet.
Dane, you're more than welcome to share the longest word in Hungarian if you like, but certainly you don't have to.
So that one is I don't know. I guess it's not a constructed word in the same sense, although it is definitely a contrived word. The root word of it is just super simple Hungarian word for holy, but there's a whole bunch of like suffixes and conjugations and a single prefix added to it, which turns it into this gigantic blob of a mess. And the word is megszentségteleníthetetlenségeskedéseitekért.
We're teaching you what you need to know.
That's right.
Our local weekly town hall.
And it means something.
What Gordon Quaker was.
What's that?
No, just being a.
Are we live? We're live right now?
Yes, dude.
Oh,
you're late to the stream.
My bad.
You go on vacation to your beach house and you just show up whenever. And you're like, "Are we live?"
This is the default suggestion of both image and title. So I'm the head of sales at MOCA now.
Hey,
sweet.
Yeah,
we needed one of those. Why don't we start here with actual discussion about what's going on? Pranksy. Have we heard of him? To my understanding, the individual, perhaps formerly known as Pranksy, who's a big NFT collector for ages. I first came across the name concerning loot boxes, art boxes, some kind of boxes that he was selling way back in the 2021 days.
NFT boxes. Maybe.
NFT boxes, way better way of describing it. Thank you, Daim. He launched a new product, 2 days ago, maybe yesterday, that was like gated access to a Discord server. Yeah, there we go. Gated access to a Discord server that was meant to like mimic the experience of NFT Twitter, NFT Discord world when it was at its most frenetic, heightened fun. They were selling regular memberships for 0.1 ETH and then like super special secret memberships for 1 ETH. Sold 7 super secret special memberships for 1 ETH and only 95 regular memberships. And 102 people. Does not a vibrant Discord community always make? And so Pranksy announced that they were going to refund every single person who bought one of these tickets and close the project. And well, in the aftermath, it seems like he's given up on NFTs altogether, which is a perfectly natural reaction to not being able to sell out your NFT project. Why don't we start
in less than 24 hours?
Yeah, in less than 24 hours.
And there's soulbound NFTs.
Pindar, please feel free to chat with us about your opinions on Pranksy or also Pranksy if you like. We will be here to elevate any commentary you'd like to share. But why don't we start here?
Why don't we shout out OpenSea real quick for promoting the drop? Always got their finger on the pulse.
So I'm going to write about this in my newsletter this week. But I thought this was very interesting. I was doing a bit of research on this yesterday, and I found two. Well, I can just pull up this little picture here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull it up. I gotta find it. Right. Well, never mind. It's on a whole different window. Okay. So essentially, I found two different communications. One was in an article about the House of Pranksy that said it was about OpenSea and House of Pranksy. It said the announcement follows the debut of the House of Pranksy, a collaborative project with one of crypto's earliest collectors earlier in the week. But then OpenSea did an interview with Pranksy. It's very clear that there's a partnership because of how the pages are structured. But it said, disclaimer, this content is for informational purposes only. It should not be construed as financial or trading advice. References to specific projects, products, services, or tokens do not constitute an endorsement, sponsorship, or recommendation by OpenSea. So just kind of interesting.
Let me just really quick rewind back to 2020.
We're back.
It was Pranksy built his following by like aping into projects really hard, tweeting about it, and then dumping. He was like the original rat poison for any project that was trying to do anything. And there were so many well-intentioned people who, built up some buzz and had a game going. And then like Pranksy entered the market and it was just immediately wrecked after that. There was no recovery because he would sell things for $1 premium. And then if things weren't selling, he would just floor. And he would own so much of the supply. I don't know if Pranksy's a he or a she.
I
believe.
Okay, so whatever. The crazy thing about this is that the more they promoted the stuff that they were buying, the more followers they got, the more they bought and said price went up, the more followers they got, and it turned into this like terrible self-fulfilling cycle. So I don't know if it kind of feels good to see this.
I remember he never, like, I don't think he was a guy who would ever buy like, one of something or like 10 of something. If he bought in, it would be like 100 or like 1,000 or like 1,500 of them. And like, yeah, I guess as you say,
which I think he did with Bored Apes, and I think he did with Punks to start it. I think he bought like 1,000 Bored Apes at the beginning and sold them for a 10% premium, and then pieced out of the market.
Yeah.
Anyways, go on. That's a little Pranksy lore.
So some interesting, so I read through some of these articles about the House of Pranksy. Like I said, there was an OpenSea blog. I'll just fucking link it in the chat here so everyone can see it. He uses the word community 25 times across. Let's see how many words. Not that many words. So just like, it's just very clear that like whatever this project was, it was extractive in a way that I think is not super unusual. I mean, the very idea, like, listen, prices where they are, whatever. There is a sentiment that I think is more important than just necessarily like what prices say. The sentiment's pretty negative. You could be in the NFT ecosystem for 15 minutes and realize that people are kind of like, as has been the case for years, struggling, whether they are struggling financially or struggling emotionally, but like this isn't like a really like super jazzed up place right now. And the idea of selling access to a Discord kind of sight unseen as for really quite a lot of money. The average person on crypto Twitter, I don't want to make any assumptions, but like $300 at 0.1 ETH for access to a Discord is not nothing, right? And good vibes are worth something, but if you're going to pay 0.1 ETH, you're expecting some kind of a return on that. And I think that a lot of the people who still remain in the space, just because the vibes have been so suppressed for so long, are aware that it's really hard to make anybody else money right now. I don't think Telegram chats are blowing up. I don't think alpha Discords are blowing up in the same way maybe they were a year ago, a year and a half ago.
This is like an all-time great whitewashing of the history of Branksy. Everything that he was is what this article is railing against, right? And it was actually his toxic culture of speculating and driving these things that, lo and behold, attracted other speculators to the market. So I have read about 2 paragraphs of this, and I can't really get past the changing of the narrative. I mean, it's all on chain. Go back and look. I know nobody wants to comb through tens of thousands of transactions, but who Pranksy is literally on chain, and everything they're railing against in this article is exactly what that person was. It was like the ultimate PvP person. It's like he never came in with an intent to help a project.
Well, I think it's so evident. And I mean, you go 24 hours later, and then his tweet this morning saying, like, what's the quote?
I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
Thank God I don't have to pretend.
Thank God I don't have to pretend, right? Like that this is no more than like the NFT space is nothing more than a bunch of degenerate gamblers, something along those lines.
I think
which is like
cesspool.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
The word cesspool.
You don't have to pretend that he's any other than an outlet for gambling anymore.
He was obviously looking for an excuse to put that kind of tweet out. If you're really, you can't do doing a 180 from an article that mentions community 25 times into something like that. I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know. That's just,
I mean, it's also,
you're not there for the
like, there's a sense of like Pranksy's a pretty large actor, right? It's been, I think, amongst the most visible and influential influencers in the NFT space for a while. And it feels kind of odd to it feels kind of odd and very, I think, of the KOL sphere to create an environment and then look back in the environment and like decry it. It's like that Who Killed Hannibal meme. You guys know what I'm talking about? I'll get it, don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, that's just where we are in the NFT scene right now. I think like you have these big old school influencers who, this just feels kind of like remember my name sort of moment. And then when people refuse to acknowledge it in the same way as they might have before, it's embarrassing to an ego like that. Like a lot of these opinion leaders are having their ego not quite massaged as it used to be. And I think that's really leaving a lot of sourness in the space and on the timeline. But that's like, honestly, I think it's a healthy thing for us to kind of like, we've got to move on. We can't treat things like they were in 2021 anymore. This isn't the same environment, and it shouldn't be. We shouldn't. A lot of people are like, oh, take me back to that. I don't think that was necessarily healthy. Obviously, like it led to where we are. So we need to build back different if we're going to do it.
Guys, I made a meme.
Big if. That is great. That is great, Max.
It's pretty good, right? I did that
really
on the call just now.
That.
That is art, sir. Well done.
Well, you spelled Pranksy wrong, but
breaking. No, leave it. That's perfect.
Yes.
Just this exact screenshot with the background and everything. Just tweet exactly that. Everything.
It's amazing.
Let's Cole beats me to it. I'll do it right now.
Do it, dog. Here, I got a screenshot for you if you want it.
It was pranky.
Branky. Oh no,
Little hanky pranky.
that was inside the box. That was the secret all along. The real identity is Branky.
Oh my god.
I mean, to be fair, okay, I'll say he also did some other things like saving one of those ill-fated Sotheby's auctions from absolute disaster. I forget which one he stepped in to, and sale prices were nothing, and he ended up going and buying everything.
Well,
And
my impression of him was that he sort of, I don't know, compartmentalized like art NFTs or like crypto art and like other NFT stuff, and I think that might explain some of the, I don't know, like the responses on his tweets are like pretty divisive, right? Like many people are calling him out on shit, and then you have a bunch of other people who are talking about him pretty positively in terms of like the crypto artish stuff.
I mean, as usual with these influencers, right? Like Pranksy, my understanding of Pranksy, based on what you guys are saying and based on my unlimited experience, is that he realized he could treat artistic NFTs just like, again, all these influencers as any other NFT project, and basically blurify the entire ecosystem into a series of like cash grabs and financial experiments, but then hide behind, again, as many of these influencers do, the veneer of sophistication and cosmopolitan identity that like investment in art kind of gives you. And I think that that's pretty much par of the course with all this stuff. I know Pranksy supported a lot of
that sounds
projects and supported cyber brokers, I think, to an extent, and like supported artists that I care about. I know I don't want to say I know, but like my feeling is that like people like Trevor Jones were involved in these loot boxes, and people like XCopy were involved in these NFT boxes, whatever. Like there were real artistry involved in these NFT boxes, and I think that you need to mention that like probably there was a lot of visibility and success for these artists that came out of association with Pranksy. However, like one of the ills that I think has been with crypto art since it's kind of over financialization has been this sense that people can conduct kind of like unruly and immoral financial activities with this kind of like in the dress of, oh, it's the art world, it's culturally significant, it's important, it's historically it's historically significant, and what we're doing here is historically significant, in the same way that I think that the message of like, this is the future of economics, this is the future of assets, everything's going to be digital, be that true or not, was kind of applied to every single thing that happened with NFTs. And I would bet that the same kind of through line characterized like DeFi, that was a bit before my time, but that like, any new DeFi project was held up by the influencers who controlled that narrative as this is the future of economics. It's really important.
For me, it's no different than like a 6529 meme card where you are just leveraging artists for your own ego and attention, right?
Yeah.
You take the collective work of other people, you funnel it into your name and your brands, and you create a product around it. And I just still think it's antithetical to the space and this idea that we need to move past gatekeeping. It's very clear who it benefits more. I would say 6529, for example, has benefited much more from the meme cards than the collective of the artists. Yeah. And I think it's probably the same thing. I know actually less about Pranksy's NFT loot boxes, but I would imagine that's the case as well.
I actually was one of the artists in who participated in those two, so I have that bit of personal experience, and I will say at the time, that may have been one of the things I was involved with that actually paid something for my involvement, for my art. but I mean, I not really much came of it other than that. So, but I mean, I think you both of you made good points. I think it's probably as you're characterizing it. Um, there are definitely you know um, yeah.
It's
I mean,
it's hard. It's just hard, right? It's attention in many ways needs to be centralized. Um,
It's a pain point in the growth, right? Like you're just gonna have this across the board as these things are, this is kind of part of like puberty for NFTs. You have a kind of realization looking back that there's a centralization problem, there's this influence problem in when something is early, there's a lot of gatekeeping there, and then a lot of these, it's certainly no knock on artists who took part in this. A lot of artists I really like were part of these boxes, including you, Daim. But I think like these these KOLs had to figure out a way to monetize themselves and monetize their audience. And this is one of the methods that they chose, is these kind of like branded efforts to sort of fundraise for something. And they leverage their following and they leverage their audience. And this is a lot of people's audiences were these NFT collections and PFPs, stuff like that they could figure out, all right, I'll put a box together and sell this thing, make memberships.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's how so many KOLs have done this. Bill.
Yeah.
It's like it's a marketing and distribution model that was like pioneered with spam emails.
It's very like not a very creative kind of. I don't know. I feel like we got to get through that though in order to get to something interesting. I think it's healthy, to be honest.
But there's no this is something we've talked about a million times, right? The difficulty of creating a viable revenue generating product in this sphere, especially given that a lot of the most vocal and visible people, like their trade is marketing, and it's one thing to market a product, and it's another thing to market marketing. And I feel like you have a product like what if you're paying for access to a Discord, right? You are paying for like access, but the access can't be the product because you're asking the access to, I guess, lead you to a product, right? Like you're marketing a marketing call, right? You're like
marketing alpha.
I'm not doing a good job at explaining this, but like the only product in a lot of these cases with a lot of these KOLs is marketing, but you're trying to monetize marketing by turning marketing into a product. So if the marketing that you've been indulging in is, I know exclusively in a way nobody else knows how to make money, and I'm able in a way no one else is able to create a community.
Yeah. Well,
then
you can't make a business model of. I mean, we've seen this. You can't build a business model of currencies that fluctuate 50% in a week. Like it just all of these companies are trying in this, and the rules change weekly. Royalties are gone. Like Spranksy's point, I think he was really defending royalties. At many
I think that he was fairly consistent about and speaks out regularly and sort of.
And also on that point, he's not wrong, right? Kind of, the whole point of this ecosystem for at least a while was the kind of royalty aspect of it. But even when people talk about royalties, they never talk about Dada. They never talk about Matt Cain in his like letter to NFT platforms. Like the people who fought for these things. It is very strange that there does seem to be this like there is this class of people who rightly and correctly and morally tries to defend the idea of royalties, but nobody ever pays tribute to like where those royalties came from ideologically and who defended them ideologically, which is all art world people. And it's just strange that there's that disconnect, because it doesn't seem like there would be any reason not to bring Dada as iconography, ideology, history into that discussion. It doesn't seem like there'd be any reason to leave off the 10 to 20 artists who signed Matt Cain's letter to Super Rare in 2019 or 2020 when they raised royalties, or raised their fees or got rid of royalties, lowered royalties, something like that.
I mean, it's the perpetual crypto sickness of worship of the successful man or the wealthy man.
Yeah. But it's all self-fulfilling prophecy. Like
Well, of course.
like the people turn themselves into like we like just agree tacitly to turn these people into like wealthy, successful people, again because their product is marketing, so they require our implicit attention and participation in order to validate their own product, which is their brand.
Well, NFTs grew on marketing rails. We're on Twitter. Like this is, it's all by algorithm. It's all meant to kind of like coalesce around, creatures like Pranksy. That's kind of how it started. And that's part of the sickness as well, is this is it's an emerging industry that is still very much bound to this algorithm. And that is, I think we're getting out of it a little bit, but it's been a sickness.
Do you think we're getting out of it a little bit?
I do think like, you're seeing, you're having industry adoption like never before, and that doesn't all take place on Twitter. So
yeah,
I think,
which is a small ray of hope.
Yeah, hope. It's also adoption in a way that makes me sad, but it's so it's kind of like
it's the same problem as like institutions coming for your Bitcoin is Art Basel coming for your crypto art. It's institutionalizing and moving into the machine. It is not separate from, it is subsuming it and being incorporated it. I do think we have kind of hit peak influencer, but for me, one, it's like crazy turn off any marketing. If you are an artist that is marketing, your art really should be the marketing. You can talk about the art, you can talk about why you did it, but don't tell me where it is and that it's for sale. If people like it enough, if somebody inquires, I think that's much sexier. I think there's a lot to be learned in the distribution model of art galleries that artists can take on themselves about maintaining mystique and pushing their art and driving that conversation. And at some point, probably in the beginning of 2021, it switched from like sharing art and talking about art and being engaged with it to just marketing. And we have to come full circle to where people actually care about the art and the ideas and the expressions, and kind of not just like pretty pictures or content or distribution.
I will say though, I think I think broadly you're right, but I do feel like there was like a strong marketing and like financialization sense as early as like 2019, which is when I came into the scene, so I have no clue how it was before, but like I remember spending a lot of time before I eventually sort of decided to jump in, having sort of very ambivalent feelings about crypto art and crypto artists, because like so much of what they posted seemed to be like sales and marketing hype of their own work, or of another artist's work, who in turn would hype that artist's work in return. And like the scene always felt to me like it was something like a regional like realtor conference or something, where you do have people who do know each other on a personal level and may have genuine connections and friendships and whatever, but it's hard to get to a point where people are not, at least to some extent, being about business.
Yeah, I guess I'll just add that my kind of to follow up on both points. I feel like my biggest gripe with the scene has been that the red sticker is twice as large as the artwork, and that's always been a mismatch in the conversation, and it's not sustainable in that way.
And weirdly, I don't think that's coming from like, I don't know, like an inherently negative place. I think I feel like some of that may have come from a place of so many artists in the space, um, being artists who basically never expected to sell,
Yeah.
or never expected to sell for more than like, 20-30 bucks of, funny money back when, they started. And to go from there to where, you're like making the kind of sales that, can perhaps sustain you, or, maybe even raise your living standard for, the
Years.
foreseeable future,
Yeah.
or years, or life-changing money, like, that was literally blowing people's mind. And by people, I mean the artists themselves. But having said that, like, I totally get what you're saying, Untitled. That is sort of the artists themselves kind of taking focus away from the art, and feeding into what, eventually became like very, very gross hyper financialization that they were, still dealing, even though sales have considerably fallen off.
Yeah. No, and I say this as head of sales. It's very important in my totally real background.
I mean, it's just the maturation of subculture into a culture, right, or into the mainstream culture. Like, people always, Robness, I know used to do this a lot, but people always compared crypto art to punk rock, right? And like, that's really instructive, and it's instructive as a whole, right? And people like to say, oh, we got Brian Brinkman in the house. Well, we'll bring Brian Brinkman's comment on, and we can discuss it. Brian says all art is marketed by either the artist, the gallery, the collectors, the eventual institutions. But again, that presupposes that there's a market for art in the first place, right? That like the art is in need of marketing, right? If the thing is existing, if there's no expectation of sales, right, both culturally and communally within the movement, people are just sharing things, then you have like this, like it's like a writer's workshop, right? Like within, a small writer's workshop, there's no need to market or defend anything because there is no expectation of sales. It's a small, cohesive ecosystem. Obviously there's different sizes here, but even with 100 people, if no one's buying anything, if there are no buyers, then it's just about improvement and discussion.
Let's talk quickly about the brilliance of Brian Brinkman and Brinkworks as a model for sustainability of an artist. I have been a bit offline, but from what I know about what Brian Brinkman did is that he offered 100 spots, I think on the inspiration of something that Panther Cheetah did, 100 spots to collectors to participate with him in his creative journey for a year, right? And if you are an artist, think of how great this is, because suddenly, you know how much you've made that year. You can focus entirely on creating for that year. You can make your best work without the stress of having to bring anything to market, and you have to do this once. And I've been thinking a lot about what Brian Brinkman did, and I think it perhaps has, I love his comments, but I think it's probably afforded him a sense of freedom in an otherwise incredibly volatile and emotional market to create. And I think he just said that he created something like 513 editions of NFTs, maybe 25 different works. And all of these works go to, this collectors in this 100 group. And I just like that as a model for sustainability.
Yeah, I really, Brian nailed it with that, and I thought that was a really nice, elegant way to do it. I liked it a lot. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. One second.
I was in the car earlier with my friend, and he was showing me a video of one of the Barstool guys, like reading a very clearly like branded speech written by DraftKings or FanDuel, one of these sports gambling sites, about the necessity of Illinois and Pennsylvania not taxing sports gambling winnings, right? That is so important. And my friend had brought up that he had seen similar things with how ESPN talent had been, filming these videos talking about the necessity of, YouTube TV bringing Disney products or Disney channels back in their service, and how it all service the fan. But like the idea that like we have reached this point in capitalism and branding where there's like advertising is the juice that sustains things, and now all the talent is just like it's just so transparent and it's bought, and like we've reached this point of it's so boring and it's so manipulated in this ad funded revenue generation stream that the only real alternative to that is a subscription model, right, where you are ignoring outside ad revenue, this third party that is giving something to the channel in exchange for the attention, and taking something from the consumer in the form of their attention. And it's interesting to just hear about the subscription model, which I think is really successful, if not super scalable, to an unbelievable degree in NFTs. Because essentially what we have at large is a branding exercise, and it's, it's not ad funded. It's still the extraction of attention, or it's platforms or influencers with attention selling to others the attention that they're getting from buyers, consumers, eyeballs, etc. Am I making any sense? I feel like I might be rambling a little bit. We get that. I don't actually know from Cold War. So, okay.
You're making sense, Max. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Not so sure about that. I think you might just be being nice. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting creative models for self-sustainability are like what kind of, I think, the whole idea of crypto art
But that is leveraging direct relationships that you have built with an artist to a group that is passionate about your work. And for me, it's just a much more interesting and empowering way to go about a creative practice than having to like submit a work to a 6529 meme card.
And the creation of community, which we know in this whole conversation with Pranksy is put up as this bastion of importance, right? This formation of community. And
as we kind of know from our sale, like once you hit that 50% tipping point, the dominoes kind of fall on FOMO. Like other people are going to get into it because they know that people are into it. So if you think like a 50 number is too, or a 50 number is too big, right? Maybe your number as an artist is 10, 10 people that you'd be willing to reach out to that you think could support you. I'm all for people having direct relationships with their collectors, having them in their own channel. And I think as a collector, that's something that you should look for, because otherwise, I think if you're looking for something like what Pranksy was offering, you're just a speculator. You are looking for trading alpha. You're looking for other things that people are talking about and going to be going into and kind of backstopping. And you're making these like, and maybe that is where the messaging got mixed. So, I'd like to put those things of like Brinkworks with Brian Brinkman, and thank you for showing up and reminding me of that, in contrast with something that, whatever House of Pranksy was.
Yeah, the individual approach is so important. We need to see more iterations of that. Brian is saying, I hope more artists try the model and iterate on it. I think that's exactly right. I personally would love to. I think it's a good precedent for artists. And I'm sure a lot of people are watching it closely. I think it's great.
Maybe this is what the effect, if it's true, of what you guys have been saying, that maybe we've reached the peak of influencership, in the sense that like the usefulness of the influencer crowd is pretty clear, right? I'm sure that goes for any level of artistry, in any sense, right? Like very few people are going to benefit from the current influencer structure, right? Every time a Raul fucking pal, whoever he is, like comes on a screen and starts talking about, the three artists who are head and shoulders above everyone else. Well, that's only three artists. And you know, if one of them is always going to be X copy and they're always just going to be anonymously somewhere in, you know, a London basement, then that's really only space, and one of them's going to be people. Then like there's only ever one artist who gets to like sit in that third chair and like have the sun shine on them. And you know, there are so many talented artists, and there's so many talented artists who have tasted real success, real notoriety, real public impact. That it's not going to surprise me if like that model, which requires more and more consolidation in a smaller and smaller subset of people, is just written off by the contingent, and probably written off first by the people who had sat in that chair for some time and then are kind of unceremoniously have it ripped out from under them and placed under the waiting butt of somebody else. There just will be people who are going to know what that success tastes like, have the collector relationships, have the infrastructure built, have the artistic talent, have the vision, and they're going to realize that that system that worked for them before is either unsustainable or too hungry to, or maybe too satisfied with itself to be hungry to incorporate more and more people. I don't know. It's going to be, I think that might be an interesting paradigm shift. I don't know exactly what it looks like, but yeah, maybe the individual relationship model. I mean, I think we just always have to be wary of, you know, for every, you know, Brinkworks, there's going to be some KOL influencer type who wants to broker that relationship in the way that like a Kevin Rose did. He wants to be the intermediary between all these artists and the community, right? Like, oh, why just have a relationship with one artist when I can get you a relationship with 10 artists? And those artists get paid handsomely for their work, and these collectors believe they have some kind of a relationship, but it's filtered through the, you know, sift of whatever this kind of person in the middle is, and we end up in the same cycle. And I think we just have to be careful not to repeat our past mistakes. That point I felt
Yeah,
like made.
yeah, good point. And to track back a little bit, well, you know, I'm sure I'm not alone in that in this crowd, but I was part of a, you know, super special club before in, you know, the NFT space, and gotta say it was pretty dead like 99% of the time. Like it was with the whale community, a la Whale Shark, and I think around the time that I sort of got in there, it was still sort of billed as, you know, the chief benefit being that if you are part of the super special circle, well, there were several super special circles, but anyways, if you're part of the top 3 super special circles, then you'll basically get like, you know, sort of regular interactions with and insights from Whale Shark himself and all these other, you know, elite personalities that are also in the super special secret club. And yeah, it was
The
like
difference, of
completely
course, is
dead
that
99% of the time.
But the difference, of course, is that when you get your special super secret interactions with the whale shark, the product that he's selling is money, right? Your super secret interactions are not for your relationship. It reflects the relationship with the money you're making, right? And the idea of making you more money. A super secret
But I mean, there
relationship
was
with an
never even
artist.
any of that.
No, my point is just that
Yeah.
like if you do that with an artist, right? The
I mean,
thing
it's
that
not
you're
even
selling,
your,
the product, the quote unquote product with heavy air
is
quotes,
the
is
artist.
not money, it's the art. So your
Yeah.
insights about the art become deeper, and your relationship with the art becomes deeper, right? The thing in the middle of the two of you, right, which is the art, which is the reason that relationship is being set up in the first place, has limitless depths in which to go down if the artist is
Yeah.
of high enough caliber. And I think that
I
a real
mean,
relationship can form in that place.
it's a really good point that, you know, like Whale Shark did this, Crypto 888 did this. You know, everybody is always trying to offer access to their super secret special club, right, on Discord. And
There's always a more exclusive club, which is why even in this House of Pranksy thing, you could be a member or you could be a super secret member. You get your own little channel and you get your own access because there's always a tighter circle of influence that you're gonna want to be in. You gotta be in.
you're just gonna be there grinding.
Mainly, what being in the super special secret club got me that I probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise was slightly deeper and more direct insight as to what a clown show that whole thing was.
Yeah. Well, have we?
We've seen them come, we've seen them go.
And there will be others, and they will come and they will go. And all we can do is hope that as a community, we learn the lessons of the past and are more perspicacious and are more observant and are more. We expect more of these people than just a promise of quick cash grabs. I have to run, unfortunately. Do you guys want to stay on and talk about anything else? I can leave the stream up.
I think we've talked enough shit for today.
Okay, cool. And if anyone could show this to Pranksy, we would very much appreciate it. Because no press is bad press, and we'd love to have him comment on this. Something like, "You shithead suckers," or "Why?"
Stay out of the deco market, Pranksy.
Yeah. Or yeah.
No.
So, yeah. Okay. No. Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here, everybody. Thank you, Pindar Van Armen and Burson. Thank you, Zakte, and thank you, Brian Brinkman, for joining the conversation. We appreciate you, and we appreciate everyone listening. We'll be back next Thursday, MOCA Town Hall. We are looking forward to seeing you there, and we're excited to have had you with us. So thanks very much, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.